The dawn over Kyiv broke under a sky heavy with uncertainty, a quiet that belied the storms gathering both on the battlefield and in the corridors of international power. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stood at a crossroads of diplomacy and survival, navigating the treacherous waters of a war that had stretched for over 2 years and now threatened to escalate further. Across the Atlantic, Washington was weighing every move, every word, every promise, while Moscow's forces continued their relentless operations, testing the limits of Ukraine's defenses and the patience of the West. In recent weeks, the conflict had intensified. Russian long-range missile strikes and drone attacks had targeted critical Ukrainian infrastructure, pushing Kyiv's resilience to its limits. According to verified reports from multiple international outlets, electricity grids, fuel depots, and logistical hubs in eastern Ukraine face systematic bombardment designed not only to cripple Ukraine's military capabilities, but also to fracture civilian morale. In parallel, the Ukrainian leadership intensified efforts to secure stronger guarantees from the United States, assurances that could provide both strategic deterrence and critical military support. These guarantees were no longer a diplomatic abstraction. They were essential for Ukraine to project confidence on the battlefield and maintain cohesion among its allies. Zelensky's appeals to Washington come at a delicate juncture. The Ukrainian president has emphasized that without binding security guarantees, any progress made in the diplomatic sphere could falter under the shadow of Russian aggression. Analysts suggest that these guarantees would encompass not only additional military hardware, but also intelligence sharing, protective measures against missiles. It is a delicate calculus. The promise of support must be credible, immediate, and tangible, or risk being dismissed as rhetoric by Moscow. Russia's military strategy has in many ways mirrored this diplomatic chess game. The Kremlin has escalated operations in regions where Ukrainian forces are stretched thin, using precision strikes and strategic positioning to signal both military superiority and political resolve. The recent surge in drone and missile attacks near key logistical centers in Kharkiv and Zaporizhia exemplifies this approach. By hitting high-value targets, Russia not only tests Ukraine's defenses, but also sends a clear message to international observers that the balance of power remains contested and the stakes of miscalculation are severe. While Kyiv pushes for security guarantees, Washington faces its own complex decision-making environment. U.S. officials must weigh the optics and implications of deeper involvement against the backdrop of ongoing NATO commitments and domestic political pressure. According to senior defense analysts, the United States has been cautious but increasingly assertive, providing advanced missile systems, counter-drone technologies, and intelligence support. Yet Kyiv insists that partial support is insufficient. It seeks assurances that can withstand the strategic pressures imposed by Moscow's current campaign. The dialogue conducted in both public and confidential channels is a testament to the tightrope of modern diplomacy. Every statement, every armament package, every signal carries weight in a conflict defined as much by perception as by firepower. Disruptions of daily life, intermittent power outages, damaged infrastructure, and the psychological toll of a conflict that touches every street and home. Military units face relentless pressure, responding to attacks while simultaneously preparing for potential escalations that could stretch resources to the breaking point. The frontline stories, often captured in grainy footage and eyewitness accounts, underscore the resilience of a population committed to defending its homeland, even as the geopolitical stakes rise beyond their immediate borders. International reactions have been similarly complex. European nations have expressed solidarity with Kyiv, but have also urged measured approaches, balancing support with the risk of provoking broader escalation. Moscow, for its part, has framed its operations as defensive, asserting that its strikes are responses to Ukrainian provocations. In reality, the interaction between Ukrainian appeals for security guarantees and Russia's offensive posture creates a dynamic of perpetual escalation, each side testing the other while the international community watches closely. The coming days are critical. Analysts predict that the intensity of Russia's strikes may continue to rise if Ukraine's requests for formal security assurances gain momentum in Washington. Conversely, the U.S. may leverage these discussions to tighten diplomatic alignment with NATO allies, ensuring that any commitment is coherent across the transatlantic alliance. In this scenario, Zelensky's strategy is clear: demonstrate both capability and resolve, signaling to Moscow that Ukraine's survival is not negotiable, while ensuring that allies are fully invested in the outcome. It is a calculated gamble. The narrative is not solely military, it is deeply political, human, and symbolic. Each missile strike, each diplomatic communique, each statement from Kyiv or Washington carries a layered message. It speaks of power, deterrence, and survival. It reflects the intricate choreography of modern warfare, where military maneuvers, public messaging, and international diplomacy are inseparably intertwined. For viewers and analysts alike, understanding these layers is essential. The war is not merely a sequence of attacks, but a complex interaction of strategy, perception, and consequence. As the dust settles over Ukraine's contested regions, the rhythm of war reveals a complex tapestry, one where the clash of steel is only part of the story, and the true battle is as much psychological and strategic as it is kinetic. Moscow's recent escalation, marked by precision drone strikes and long-range missile bombardments, signals a deliberate intensification of pressure designed to fracture not only Ukraine's military posture, but also its political resolve. Across Kyiv, the government responds with a dual strategy: defensive resilience and international persuasion, particularly seeking formal security guarantees from the United States. The sectors under duress tell a vivid story. Kharkiv, a city long at the forefront of the conflict, has endured sustained missile attacks targeting logistics and communication. According to verified reports, several Ukrainian military depots and fuel stations have been damaged, forcing rapid redeployment of units and an urgent restructuring of supply lines. These attacks are not random. They reflect a calculated effort to disrupt Ukraine's operational capacity and signal to both domestic and international audiences that the Kremlin retains the ability to strike decisively. Zelensky's leadership in this moment is emblematic of the delicate balancing act between action and diplomacy. By openly pressing the United States for strong security guarantees, he is sending a signal that Ukraine's survival depends on credible support from its most powerful allies. The nature of these guarantees, while not fully disclosed, is understood to include advanced missile defense systems, intelligence sharing, and potential commitments that deter further Russian incursions. For Kyiv, these assurances are not symbolic. They are the backbone of strategic credibility, the tangible evidence that the global community will not abandon them at a critical juncture. The Kremlin, in turn, has read these developments with a keen eye for leverage. Analysts note that Russian forces have not only maintained pressure in frontline regions, but have also targeted symbolic sites, oil depots, infrastructure nodes, and logistical hubs, amplifying both material and psychological impact. The interplay of physical destruction and political signaling underscores a key aspect of modern warfare. Actions are designed to resonate far beyond immediate tactical effects. Each strike is a message, a calculated influence operation intended to test the boundaries of Ukrainian resistance and Western support. Within Kyiv, the human consequences are stark. Soldiers operate under extreme strain, maintaining defensive positions while coordinating counterattacks, often with limited resources. Civilians navigate intermittent power outages, damaged roads, and the ever-present threat of missile strikes. Humanitarian corridors, evacuation routes, and emergency services function under immense pressure, reflecting the broader reality that war is as much about sustaining society under duress as it is about territory. According to verified international sources, the psychological toll on Ukrainian civilians remains profound, reinforcing the urgency of rapid and reliable international support. Meanwhile, U.S. policymakers are carefully calibrating their response. The administration recognizes that providing tangible guarantees has both strategic benefits and political risks. On one hand, visible commitments can reinforce Ukrainian morale and deter further Russian escalation. On the other hand, excessive engagement risks drawing the United States deeper into direct confrontation with Moscow. In this context, Zelensky's appeals are both a political maneuver and a strategic necessity, designed to test the limits of Allied support while signaling that Ukraine is not willing to negotiate its security at the expense of its sovereignty. The broader geopolitical implications cannot be overstated. Russian strikes are not occurring in isolation. They are occurring amid an international environment marked by energy uncertainty, supply chain disruption, and shifting alliances. Europe watches closely, balancing support for Ukraine with domestic concerns about energy security and economic stability. NATO allies are engaged in continuous assessment of force posture, readiness, and the adequacy of their support mechanisms. Each missile that falls in Ukraine reverberates across capitals, shaping defense budgets, diplomatic strategies, and political rhetoric. From Moscow's perspective, escalation serves multiple purposes. Militarily, it pressures Ukrainian forces and tests defensive resilience. Politically, it projects strength to both domestic and international audiences, framing operations as calculated responses to Ukrainian provocations and Western support. Strategically, it seeks to influence the terms of any future negotiations, demonstrating that Russian objectives cannot be ignored. Analysts suggest that the Kremlin is acutely aware of the symbolic weight of its actions, where the combination of kinetic operations and political messaging amplifies its influence far beyond the battlefield. In Kyiv, countermeasures are both immediate and strategic. Ukraine's military has implemented advanced early warning systems, redeployed mobile missile defense units, and strengthened command and control networks to reduce vulnerability. Civilian authorities have increased coordination with international humanitarian organizations to maintain services and evacuation options. Simultaneously, Ukrainian diplomacy is intensifying, with high-level engagements aimed at securing legally binding security guarantees from the United States. According to recent verified reports, these negotiations are focused on not just military assistance, but also legal assurances and protective commitments, all designed to prevent Moscow from calculating that escalation can proceed without consequence. The convergence of these dynamics, military pressure, diplomatic appeals, civilian resilience, creates a war that is simultaneously kinetic, psychological, and strategic. Each missile strike, each policy discussion, and each public statement contributes to a narrative battle over perception, credibility, and deterrence. Ukraine's leadership understands that survival is contingent on both tangible support and the projection of international resolve. For the Kremlin, escalation is a tool to shape perception both within Russia and abroad, emphasizing strength while challenging the durability of Ukrainian alliances. As the conflict enters yet another perilous phase, the battlefield dynamics reveal the stark asymmetry between Ukraine's defensive ingenuity and Russia's increasingly sophisticated offensive operations. Over the past weeks, Russian forces have shifted their approach, employing a combination of long-range missile strikes, drone swarms, and rapid mechanized maneuvers designed to exploit vulnerabilities in Ukraine's infrastructure and tactical deployments. Analysts note that this multi-pronged strategy aims not merely at territorial gain, but at a psychological edge, signaling to Kyiv and its allies that escalation remains a tangible threat. Strategically, Russia's operations have targeted key nodes essential to Ukraine's warfighting capacity. Logistics hubs, fuel depots, and command centers have been systematically assessed and struck, forcing Ukrainian forces to adapt on the fly. Verified reports indicate that Russian drones recently penetrated deeper into Ukrainian airspace, striking critical energy facilities in the east. Each strike, while tactical in nature, is layered with messaging, a demonstration of capability and an assertion of dominance over contested regions. The objective is clear: to impose operational strain and project a sense of inevitability regarding Russian power projection. For Ukraine, the defensive response has been both resilient and inventive. Military engineers have accelerated fortification of strategic locations, deployed mobile anti-drone units, and leveraged intelligence sharing networks provided by allied nations. The integration of Western technology, from high-precision counter-drone systems to advanced radar surveillance, has been pivotal in blunting Russia's aggressive maneuvers. According to verified sources, these adaptations have mitigated the impact of several high-profile strikes, allowing Ukrainian forces to maintain operational continuity under pressure. Yet the conflict is far from purely kinetic. Diplomatic currents flow in tandem with military actions, creating a complex landscape where every missile and every statement carries layered significance. Zelensky's push for U.S. security guarantees exemplifies this interplay. By publicly emphasizing the need for binding international assurances, Ukraine sends a signal to Moscow and to the world that the country is prepared to defend itself, but expects escalation. The stakes of this interplay are amplified by Russia's broader geopolitical signaling. Moscow has consistently framed its actions as a response to Western interference, portraying the Ukrainian defense not as an autonomous struggle, but as part of a larger confrontation between Russia and NATO. Analysts suggest that by escalating attacks near critical infrastructure, Russia seeks to create a narrative of vulnerability, emphasizing the necessity for negotiation on terms favorable to Moscow. The objective is psychological as much as tactical, to shape the perception of strength both domestically and internationally. Civilians remain at the heart of this unfolding drama. In cities like Zaporizhzhia and Kharkiv, the daily rhythms of life are punctuated by missile alerts, intermittent blackouts, and the uncertainty of sudden evacuations. Humanitarian corridors, emergency services, and community networks have adapted to these pressures, often demonstrating extraordinary resilience. Yet the strain is visible. Families navigate the precarious balance between survival and normalcy, embodying the stakes of a conflict that extends far beyond battlefield lines. Each attack reverberates through neighborhoods, not merely damaging property, but testing the social and psychological fabric of Ukraine itself. International observers are acutely aware of these dynamics. European capitals monitor the situation, balancing support for Ukraine with the potential repercussions of escalation. NATO allies, particularly those in close proximity to the conflict, have accelerated readiness measures, preparing for contingencies that extend beyond Ukraine's borders. The United States, meanwhile, continues to calibrate its support, weighing immediate operational assistance against long-term strategic commitments. Verified reports indicate that discussions on advanced missile systems, intelligence sharing, and defensive fortifications remain central to ongoing deliberations, all in an effort to ensure that Ukraine's defenses can withstand the current surge in Russian aggression. Russia's calculus, meanwhile, is multifaceted. Moscow recognizes the symbolic weight of striking critical infrastructure, understanding that the psychological impact often exceeds the immediate tactical gain. Each successful attack is amplified through state-controlled media and international propaganda channels, projecting an image of invulnerability and operational mastery. Analysts note that this dual approach, kinetic and perceptual, is designed to influence both the domestic Russian audience and the global strategic community, demonstrating that Moscow retains initiative and strategic patience. For Ukraine, the challenge is equally layered. Military operations must be executed with precision, civilian protections must be maintained, and diplomatic signaling must convey strength without overextending commitments. The pursuit of U.S. security guarantees is central to this strategy. Beyond the acquisition of military assets, these guarantees serve as a deterrent, signaling to Moscow that escalation carries tangible consequences. In effect, Ukraine's leadership is orchestrating a multidimensional defense strategy, combining tactical innovation, civilian resilience, and strategic diplomacy to navigate an increasingly hostile environment. The intersection of these factors, military pressure, civilian endurance, and international diplomacy, creates a war that is as much about perception and deterrence as it is about territorial control. Every strike, every guarantee, and every public statement contributes to a narrative battlefield in which credibility, resilience may well determine the course of the conflict in the coming months. As the conflict stretches into its latest phase, the spotlight falls on the intersection of strategy, human endurance, and international stakes. Ukraine stands at a critical juncture. Each decision, each strike, and each diplomatic negotiation carries implications not just for the immediate battlefield, but for the geopolitical landscape of Europe and the world. The intensification of Russian attacks, coupled with Zelensky's continued push for U.S. and allied security guarantees, has created a tense, high-stakes environment where the balance of power hangs precariously. In the eastern sectors, Russian forces continue their multi-layered operations. Missile strikes, drone incursions, and targeted artillery bombardments have been reported across supply depots, communication hubs, and strategic infrastructure. Verified intelligence sources indicate that Russia's operational design is not merely about territorial gain. It is a calculated effort to strain Ukraine's defensive capabilities, disrupt civilian logistics, and test the cohesion of allied support. Each missile carries more than explosive power. It carries a message of resolve, capability, and strategic patience. Ukraine's response has been increasingly sophisticated. Field commanders coordinate rapid redeployments, mobile anti-drone defenses, and fortified positions to mitigate damage. Civilian authorities continue to navigate the strain of war, maintaining essential services and coordinating humanitarian efforts in the face of repeated disruption. Reports from independent observers highlight the resilience of local communities, which, while under siege, continue to uphold the social fabric of cities like Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Kyiv itself. The human cost is undeniable, but so is the determination to persevere. Diplomatically, Zelensky's efforts to secure robust U.S. security guarantees remain a central pivot point. These guarantees encompass not only military support, advanced defensive systems, intelligence sharing, and logistical aid, but also credible deterrence against further escalation. By publicizing these requests, Ukraine sends a strategic signal. It is not only prepared to defend its sovereignty, but expects tangible backing from the international community. This dual message, resilience and reliance on allies, is essential in a conflict where perception is as Russia's strategy, by contrast, combines kinetic precision with psychological projection. Analysts note that Moscow has deliberately targeted symbolic infrastructure, energy facilities, depots, and strategic nodes as much to influence public perception as to degrade Ukraine's operational capacity. Each strike is carefully calculated to maximize both physical damage and strategic signaling. Domestically, Russian media amplifies these operations to project competence and strength. Internationally, they are a statement of intent, a demonstration of capability that underscores Moscow's strategic patience and global ambitions. The broader European and global context adds layers of complexity. NATO and EU member states watch closely, adjusting defense postures and assessing supply chains, energy dependencies, and strategic alliances. The United States, while providing tactical support and evaluating security guarantees, must weigh the consequences of deeper engagement. Every deployment, every missile system, and every intelligence report contributes to a delicate strategic calculus that could redefine regional stability. Analysts emphasize that the decisions made in the coming weeks will have ripple effects, influencing not just Ukraine's trajectory, but the broader European security architecture. Within this maelstrom, the human dimension remains both central and compelling. Civilians face persistent threats, intermittent airstrikes, infrastructure damage, and the psychological weight of a conflict that seems unending. Emergency responders operate under extreme conditions, navigating destroyed roads and damaged utilities to maintain services. The resilience of local communities combined with coordinated international, their perseverance is both a symbol and a practical bulwark against the chaos of war. Strategically, Ukraine's insistence on security guarantees underscores a central truth of modern conflict. Survival is increasingly dependent on alliances, not just territorial control. The effectiveness of air defenses, the precision of counterattacks, and the adaptability of logistics are magnified exponentially when complemented by credible international backing. Conversely, Russia's escalation serves to test both Ukrainian capabilities and allied commitment, applying pressure to extract political leverage and influence perception at home and abroad. The interplay between kinetic operations and strategic signaling forms a core dynamic of the ongoing conflict. Looking ahead, several scenarios emerge. If Ukrainian requests for robust guarantees are met with tangible support, the operational balance could shift, allowing Kyiv to maintain defensive integrity and pursue strategic countermeasures. Alternatively, if support is perceived as delayed or insufficient, Russian escalation may intensify, testing both military resilience and civilian endurance. Each scenario carries profound implications for the broader geopolitical order, potentially affecting NATO cohesion, European security, and global perceptions of power projection. The conflict's unpredictability is mirrored in the human stories that unfold daily. Soldiers defending key positions demonstrate ingenuity and courage under extreme pressure, while civilians navigate the constant tension between survival and normalcy. Reports from verified international observers highlight the effectiveness of Ukrainian countermeasures even amid sustained attacks, emphasizing the interplay between tactical skill and strategic foresight. At the same time, the psychological weight of continuous escalation underscores the urgency of credible international guarantees and the critical importance of maintaining global attention. Reports from independent observers highlight the resilience of local communities, which, while under siege, continue to uphold the social fabric of cities like Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Kyiv itself. The human cost is undeniable, but so is the determination to persevere. Diplomatically, Zelensky's efforts to secure robust U.S. security guarantees remain a central pivot point. These guarantees encompass not only military support, advanced defensive systems, intelligence sharing, and logistical aid, but also credible deterrence against further escalation. By publicizing these requests, Ukraine sends a strategic signal. It is not only prepared to defend its sovereignty, but expects tangible backing from the international community. This dual message, resilience and reliance on allies, is essential in a conflict where perception is as critical as firepower. As the curtain falls on this part of the narrative, the stakes are unmistakably clear. Ukraine's push for security guarantees, Russia's continued escalation, and the intricate interplay of diplomacy, strategy, and human resilience define the contours of a war that will reverberate far beyond its immediate borders. Each missile, each diplomatic initiative, and each civilian act of courage contributes to a larger story, a story of determination, strategy, and the high-stakes calculus of modern geopolitical conflict. The coming weeks and months will be pivotal, whether through successful deterrence, strategic resilience, or unforeseen escalation. The outcome will not only determine the fate of Ukraine, but also shape the strategic architecture of Eastern Europe and the balance of global power. Observers, analysts, and citizens alike must understand that the narrative of this conflict is ongoing, dynamic, and profoundly consequential. The intersection of military action, international guarantees, and human endurance will continue to define the trajectory of the Ukraine-Russia war, shaping history in real time.